Memory transcription subject, Governor Tava of the Venlil Republic. Date, Standardized Human Time, February 5th, 2137. While the United Nations had no intention of gunning down ISIF, human snipers had their sights trained on him in case the Arxa tried anything. I imagined their watchful presence was for the purpose of putting the other delegates at ease, as much as they could be with a carnivorous predator mounting the stage. The chief hunter had to slouch to reach the microphone, even after raising it to its full height. Fearful expressions marred the prey delegates' faces, with reptilian eyes aimed in their direction. Everything that stirred our instincts about Terrans was there tenfold in a grey. This was the face that haunted our nightmares, the visage of the cruelest race in existence. A ginger and white dosser leapt off Isif's head and curled up on the podium right in front of him. The delegation from Baloo's refugees hissed for the rodent to be removed, trying to signal her to come to them. The tiny herbivore who'd appeared alongside the Arxa showed no interest, yawning to express boredom. Many humans looked befuddled by her nonchalance, except for Zhao, who seemed to have encountered this dosser before. Isif flared his nostrils, and a handful of delegates fainted. The Thafki ambassador was out like a light, while Gajid Minister Kiri swooned and folded like a lawn chair. Primates rushed over to try to rouse the downed diplomats, and I turned to survey Noah's expression. The Terran ambassador had taken on an exterior of alarm, as though something awful occurred to him. His unmasked eyes raced across the room, scanning every Venlil. The glint in his brown irises was of personal concern. I gasped with my own worry when the pieces clicked in my brain. Ambassador Williams was looking for Glim, and his pupil settled on a tail sticking out from under a dresser.
Oh no,
Noah murmured.
Seeing an Arxa must be traumatic for Glim. They tortured and penned him for years. He watched them eat other Venlil in front of him daily.
The human pushed his way through the crowd, who were preoccupied with the most threatening predator in the room.
Not cattle.
Glim was catatonic under the dresser, shaking like a leaf. He was gasping out the words, "not cattle," before diverting to repeating the numbers on his brand. The Venlil rescue promptly vomited all over the floor, and Noah dragged him out to prevent him from choking. The astronaut shared a glance with me, before rushing the former cattle Venlil from the room in his arms. The terror in Glim's eyes seemed to pierce right through me. How long had he been under there? Since he heard us discussing whether to allow Isif to speak. The chief hunter either didn't notice or didn't comment on Glim's departure as he cleared his throat with a thunderous growl. More of the delegates cowered, and unlike the human's apologetic demeanor, the Arxa seemed irked. He hissed something into the dosser's ear. Worried gazes dotted the audience as many assumed the grey was leaning in to chow into her soft throat. The rodent chittered back with an angry expression and made a dramatic gesture at the microphone. Isif sighed in surrender.
Hello. I do not expect to be granted access to your meetings or to join your association. I merely recognize the pragmatic concern that we have a common enemy, and per the information provided by human intelligence services, Betterment and the Federation are two sides of the same knife. While I cannot offer any recompense for the ills you have suffered, know it will end with me and my rebellion.
After everything you've done, you want us to work with you.
Noela the Crocodile representative challenged.
There are crocodile here. Humans are so soft, and their willingness to speak with you, after what you did to Earth, reflects the shortcomings of their empathy. You are the face of the extermination fleet, and I do not wish to speak or work with you.
Oh, so if you challenge your government after leading atrocities your whole life, you're fine. The crocodile were used and thrown away without knowing we were omnivores. If I had that information when voting on Earth's fate, things would have been different. Grey.
If I had an alternative that did not get me killed, things would have been different. You had a choice, the ability to speak up without losing your head, and you didn't. Why?
I don't owe you any explanation, you abominable monstrosity. I didn't vote for you to get your nasty eyes on the best pickings. Oh, sorry. I mean, speak to us. We'd never fight alongside someone as unscrupulous and repulsive as you.
Silence!
Secretary General Zhao bellowed.
I expect all guests of the Sapient Coalition to behave with the decorum and rationality befitting professional diplomats. We are the Federation. We don't conduct debates and decide issues by lobbing insults, no matter our personal feelings.
If Noah were here rather than tending to Glim, he would have remarked on how difficult it had been to get a word in edgewise, with the constant interruptions during his half-a-speech. The jeers rang in my ears as fresh as yesterday. Kupor had led the heckling, casting skepticism on the notion of arboreal eyes and suggesting humanity would turn on us. The Mazik was much more partial to Noah now than in those days and hadn't hesitated to shield him from Koji. However, the large mammal had voted against allowing Isif to speak. I imagined he was having difficulty holding his tongue. Humanity should be appreciative of Kupor's attempts to be respectful of the forum, knowing that his true thoughts likely aligned with Nuela's rhetoric. This debate could turn heated in a hurry, and I wasn't sure I trusted an Axa to rein in his temper. The Terrans couldn't let this powder keg erupt into flames. Your tall Ambassador Laulo curled his lip in defiance.
What is it you want, Axa?
I seek to ally where beneficial to weaken our enemies, and I am willing to attack specific targets in exchange for resources. Primarily, I seek a non-aggression pact. This war should not continue in the event we both triumph over our adversaries, yes? This death cycle must cease.
Isif retorted, flicking his tongue.
So you'll what? Stop raiding us and eating us?
Cerulean Prime Minister Braylon spoke up.
I don't see how we could ever believe that you wouldn't relax our guard just to launch a sneak attack.
Do you not recognize that you have the most shrewd, resourceful, relentless species on your side? A humanity with actual time to perfect their craft. It will be suicide to go up against them in a few years. Look how rapidly they advance, they learn, they innovate. Similar to your feelings, I have no guarantee that you wouldn't see my kind extinct as soon as we try to isolate ourselves. I know you think we do not deserve to exist.
You don't!
Nuela squawked.
You're a bunch of bloodthirsty demons!
The archives will show it was not always so cut and dry, bird. Now shut your beak. We cannot be friends, obviously, but I would hope, many generations from now, our descendants might be civilized with each other. That each of our factions may regard the other's lives with some minimal value. Would that not be better than this cursed existence?
Adastra diplomat leapt around, held aloft by a Mazik, trying to draw attention.
You're keeping one of ours as a hostage on this very floor! Who is she, and what have you done to her?
This is Felra. I rescued her from Baloo, and we are friends. She is silly and irritating. But does she look like she's a hostage to you? I feel like her hostage.
I made Siffy come here.
Felra squeaked, a prideful note colouring her voice.
Speaking at this summit was my idea. I told him we should try to make peace. Isif was never taught how to have empathy, but I'm certain he has a good heart.
For the record, nobody made me do anything. I believe this is a delusional, fruitless endeavor, and the humans, much like all of you, don't want me here tarnishing their reputation. I am surprised I was allowed to speak to you.
Then why did you come here at all?
Mazik President Kupor finally challenged.
To test how much you could manipulate us.
My reason for coming is somewhat to express my remorse over the role I played in your historical atrocities, because it is my sincere feeling. Also, practically, I cannot overcome the Dominion alone, so it is a strategic move to express the benefits that could be gained from a reluctant partnership. Zhao touts the idea of victory at all costs, yes? The cost is for us to tolerate each other.
What if I don't want to tolerate you?
Then that was the expected outcome. I merely will ask that the United Nations pass along back channels to communicate with me if you desire. Each state may reach out should they be interested in any non-aggression pacts. Thank you for granting me an audience. I will not take any more of your time.
Zhao gave a hand signal to the UN soldiers who escorted the Axa from the room without hesitation. I considered the speech I just heard. It was surprising that the carnivore had been able to iterate his full pitch and have his points listened to by prey. Isif's rhetoric mirrored my own ideas, recognizing that friendship was impossible and suggesting a pragmatic alliance instead. Risking open collaboration before the election would be political suicide, but perhaps the Venlil Republic could accept his proposal off the public's radar. Isif's stunt proved that an Axa can act civilized and communicate more than hungry threats. The question is if this demolished humanity's chances of securing support for the coalition. The majority of species had consented to the Axa's brief admittance and supported the Terrans in the face of mockery. Secretary-General Zhao seemed keen to get the proceedings back on track. Serious entreaties were needed at this moment rather than festivities. It was a shame, since I sensed how desperately the humans needed a happy moment to cling to. The guests had enjoyed the earlier messing about to a certain degree, judging by how they cheered Noah's face-planting stunt on. This was supposed to be an event calling for unity and celebrating the diplomatic tribulations Earth had overcome. As the UN's leader rushed to mingle with lady diplomats, I committed myself to winning over anyone who was put off by the Ark's visit. A part of me was darkly curious if others were considering his offer, though the cynical side of me doubted it. After how the peaceful Terrans were mistreated time and again, I had little faith in the collective to pass fair judgments. I padded up to Mazik President Kupo, bracing myself for damage control. I was impressed with how you handled yourself. The humans had a tough situation on their hands there. They need ISIF militarily. You seem to understand that.
Koa owes our continued existence to humanity. Though I vehemently disagree with treating that monster as a person, the UN still has my full support, Tava.
Kupo replied.
I see what you're trying to do, and it's not necessary. The Terrans simply can't believe that predators are evil because they are not evil. It's understandable.
Not accurate, but roll with it. Perhaps there's another good predator race out there. Like Zhao said, sapiens choose what they are.
Sure, but blood-drinking killers are a lot more likely to choose evil by default. There's a disconnect between that practice and good motives. Even the humans would agree, and that's why they bettered themselves through science. Their curiosity brings out the best in them.
Well, I'm glad you noticed how humans adore science and find meaning in their surroundings, I dodged. Sarah would be happy to hear that her field is appreciated. Please excuse me. That was one name to check off the list of potential discontented parties. The slightly misguided Kupo support hadn't been jeopardized by our unwanted guest. I noticed a dejected Noela slinking into Zhao's circle with her indigo wings folded unhappily. The crocodile had her body turned away from the human. I wondered if she was afraid of him after he lobbied for the Ark's introduction. Scurrying off from my private conversation with the Mazik, I joined the Secretary General's circle to offer support. The crocodile of all species have no right to challenge humanity. I was surprised and perhaps a little displeased that they were invited here when Earth's gaping wounds are still fresh.
I'm glad you're all right, Telekin.
Zhao was saying to the Thafki diplomat who looked groggy after fainting.
I'd love to get back on track discussing a Thafki settlement under our protection. Somewhere you can restore your society without being targeted for attack as soon as you plant your roots.
Telekin slumped his shoulders.
Before you came along, there were 12,000 of us left because of the Arksa. The Federation leaders made sure no one came to help us, but they didn't helm the raid. The Greys did the deed.
Had I known the Arksa was coming in advance, I never would have allowed it. Humanity understands how sensitive this is to you and your people. All I want is to help the Thafki flourish. You're important to us personally, enough that we never give up on calling you our friends. Please, in turn, don't give up on humanity because of this one hiccup.
Everything with you ends with the representative dying, the Arksa showing up, or a planet getting attacked.
You're right. We failed to keep people safe. This incursion was a lapse in our security, for which I am unspeakably sorry. We can do better. Humans aren't quitters. Your survival and your freedom are what we fight for, alongside our own.
Noela flapped her wings.
Human, I know you may not want to speak to me.
No, please. I brought you here as an olive branch, not to hold earth over your head. I don't wish to condemn your species. While few would agree with me, I think the fact that the crocodile were the first victims changes our perspective. This is a fresh start for us all. Or it can be.
I just wish to apologize for how I phrased my words to the filthy grey. Not that I regret that. Just... I realized how my nasty eyes comment could be taken the wrong way by humans who also have binocular eyes. Your eyes aren't nearly as bad as theirs.
Zhao coyly lifted his visor for a second.
Are you sure about that?
The crocodile froze, stuttering for a few moments.
No. Worse in person. Videos don't do the whole looking right at you justice. What I meant to say is that yours are unfortunate and theirs are nasty.
Is that so?
The Secretary General issued a gruff laugh, fitting his visor back over his eyes.
For what it's worth, many humans get anxiety from other people staring at them. It can be most unsettling, and I understand that your temper flared with Isif. All is forgiven.
Noela shook her wings out, an attempt to flush the fear chemicals from her body. Telikan had looked away when Zhao started to remove his visor. The Thafki didn't want to risk passing out twice in the span of an hour. I couldn't help but snicker at the frightful diplomats, along with the amused, human-accustomed Laulo. The Yotul was having a full belly laugh, and I shared his view on the situational absurdity. Gazing into a human's eyes was intoxicating. A way of peering through a window to their soul. Especially when it was Noah's loving gaze. For anyone who knows the Terrans well, it's impossible to be scared of them. Seeing Laulo project that sentiment, I can tell the Yotul will be an easy vote to join the coalition. The positive outlook was that no parties outside the Dwerten Shield had walked out or become hostile to humans, which was a victory under the circumstances. The real test would be how many committed to join as a member state when the vote took place in a few days. Outlining any diplomatic technicalities, discussing a vision for a post-war future, and confirming signatures to the various treaties from would-be entrants were next on the agenda. For some planets, FTL comms would need to patch them into legislatures at home to vote on document ratifications. I was hopeful that humanity would succeed in its mission to found a better league of planets. No species had fought harder with unrequited kindness to gain friends among the stars. A binding agreement to cement that humans were not alone in their quest for peace would mean the world to me.